Uh, Hi Rashmi, good
Hi.
afternoon.
Hi. Good evening
Can
also.
someone, good evening, sorry.
Yeah.
Can someone from the audience let us know if we're both audible? Uh, can the audience please let us know if we're both audible?
Yes, I think, yeah. Nandini said we
All
both.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, Rashmi, thank you for joining us this evening. And I hope we're able to give our audience what they would expect from this live session. So, tell us a little bit more about CMCA and what exactly it does.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Vidhi, for inviting CMCA to be a part of this. I'm glad that we could have a conversation about it. So, about CMCA, I'll just give a brief about the organization. Okay. So, CMCA is a non-profit organization which is a pioneer in citizenship, education, and life skills. And it has been for 21 years now that we've been doing this. And our mission is to, transform the young, which involves the children and the youth, into concerned and thinking and active citizens for an inclusive and sustainable India. Okay, so that's our mission, and that's what we do. So basically, CMCS programs and the content that we develop, helps give the young people a tool to be able to instill those values of democratic citizenship and life skills in schools and colleges and
Right.
various other institutions. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is like the brief context of the organization. And if you want me to tell you, like we focus on the young people from age 6 to age
Yeah.
21, because we do have
Yeah.
programs going from, like, as young as 6 years old to as old as an adult till 21 for university as well. So
Yeah.
yes, so that's a brief intro about the organization.
So, when you think of something as something like civic rights, there's a lot of people that might think it's not as important. And, for a good citizen, it's important you have basic education and, skill development, skill training. So, why do you think that, CMCA focuses at civic rights, and, how important is it that civic rights are given the same kind of importance that education is today?
Okay, so the whole idea about, as you said, that people might believe that civic education, why not basic education or training or something
Yeah.
like that. I think I'll start from the point that how, as people, sometimes we do have a very limited understanding of education. Okay,
Right.
and we believe that literacy, numeracy, and those kind of skills are important, whereas
Hmm.
somehow your citizenship education takes a backseat. But I think
Right.
in that perspective, we actually we take democracy for granted. Okay, we feel that this is something that we've learned and it will be secured for many more years to come, and we forget that it needs to be enhanced, and people need to practice it in day to day life, right? And they need to have
Yeah.
those values. They need to be aware about it, first of all. Okay,
Yeah.
so I feel in that perspective, it's very, very important. And CMCA as an organization believes in education for democracy. Okay. And
All
the
right.
idea
Yeah.
of, young believing the fact that change is possible, and it
Hmm.
starts with them as well. So that's
Yeah.
why we focus on that citizenship education is very, very important. And also, if I go a little back and take a
Hmm.
bit of a kind of a historical idea also. So when UN talks about the Convention on Rights of Children, okay, they say that how children's participation is the foundation for education for democracy. Okay, so
Right.
believing that the education about democratic citizenship or life skills is not as equally as important as the other category that we have for education, which involves literacy, is kind of
Yeah.
a limited understanding and needs to grow in that perspective.
Right. Of course. That makes sense. As CNC alumni, I relate to it very much because it sets me apart from the rest of the students around me. And I remember when we always thought that, be the change you want to see was what we went by, what our mentor taught us. And even the CMCA tagline says, spark change. So if we could give more to our audience in terms of, how the youth sparks change, and how much potential did CMCA see in the youth? Because I think it started off at the scale that it is today, years ago, and that's how it's come up. So how did you project that, children possibly as young as 6 have the potential to be good citizens and grow up to be better?
Okay, so I think that's a very, very good question, and I'll try giving like 3 major points around it. So first, CMCA as a community or even as an organization believe that, children are born citizens. They need not become citizens after a certain age or something like that. And it's very important to instill the values of our constitution to be able to achieve the maximum potential of a nation, for that matter. Okay, since we have constitution and we have democracy, so it's very, very important. And since you talked about the tagline of spark change, right? So there is this famous Chinese proverb, and we keep using that in our organization, that when you tell something to children, they might forget. Okay, when you teach them, they might remember it. But if you involve them in the process, in that experiential learning process, they eventually learn. Okay, so the whole idea of a sparking change comes from that perspective as well. And since in the earlier time I was telling you about how we deal with students as young as 6 years of age, is also from our programs, like for example, we have a program called Magic Box. Okay, and that's for grade 1 to 5, where we have these daily learning activity cards, and it's a teacher-led program. So the school teachers do these activity cards, and it's based on different themes. For example, diversity, equality, harmony with nature. So what happens is that, through this experiential learning, the children are becoming aware, and the idea of positive thinking, critical thinking for that matter, which is very, very important, those get instilled at a very, very young age. So that's one of the way how we see children are very we shouldn't limit that thing that they won't be able to bring about a change or something like that. And if I may quote 2 examples, probably give you 2 examples about it. So there is this program that we do which is called the Makla Gram Sabhas. Okay, so basically these are children village sabhas. Okay, so in 2006 the Karnataka government issued a notice that every gram panchayat is supposed to do a Makla Gram Sabha once in a year, and should dedicate a day to the children. Okay, where the children would come forward, ask questions, and engage with the local government, in order to seek solutions for it. Okay, so and CMCA has been able to play a very crucial role in energizing all these Makla Gram Sabhas. Okay, so if you see the impact of this program of Makla Gram Sabha, what we've been able to see is that children have been able to secure so much of they've been aware and so much of their own rights, and they've been able to understand the responsibilities. And if you look down into numbers, there were lakhs of work done at the Gram Panchayat level, just because children were reporting issues such as, we don't have toilets in our school. The school gate is not there. I don't have a bus to come to my school. So those kind of things, very, very important. They've been children, as community, as their own, talking about their own counterparts, like their friends. They've been able to talk to their parents that, please send your child to school as young as, a 13-year-old saying that it's important, right to education. And then a child coming forward and talking about, this is not right, child labor is not right. So those kind of things. So I think, that's the whole idea of children sparking change. And they are as equal citizens as we think any adult would be, probably.
It's a little complex to teach children concepts such as gender equality, gender studies, and diversity for that matter, because even as students we learned it when we were probably in 9th grade, 10th grade, the importance of democracy. So coming up, this whole thing with the magic box thing, the whole kit that you do a placard and you have an activity, it really helps at a younger age, so it makes sense. So there's another dynamic that I wanted to cover, which was, that you worked with several schools and colleges in Bangalore, in Mumbai, all over the country. and in urban and rural areas, not like you've restricted yourself to the cities. And with different levels of the government, even public figures like Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Rahul Dravid. And just because our entire theme is from society to society. So how easy was it to different demographics and different people? How is it working with people of society, doing something towards society? How easy was it for you, from the beginning?
Yeah, okay. So I'll try to like divide them into different categories and take them up.
Yeah.
Okay. So like let's say when we talk about children, right, from this context of rural to urban or something like that, what we've experienced so far is that children are the same. Okay. Like they have the same enthusiasm and they feel the same towards something. Maybe the issues might be taken at a different priority in terms of
Yeah.
when you're looking at a rural context and when you're looking at an urban context. So
Yeah.
an example would be that if I'm doing something in a rural context, I might want to focus on basic needs and basic requirements in the country, like the idea of health, the idea of education, whereas maybe
Right.
you're trying to make it more complex when you're going to a urban kind of a setting and you want to address the same thing in a different way. Whereas for
Yeah.
but at the end I feel it remains the same because children remain the same. The issues might be given a different priority, but children have been extremely very welcoming to us as an organization, because
Yeah.
whenever the programs are closing after a year, after the academic year ends, and they ask us, so when are you going to come back? Okay, because they're just happy. It's like a fun class that they're having where they're
Yeah.
also learning on their own. So they do ask us. So it's been very good with children in that level of engagement. Now when it comes to, let's say, the government, okay, or different
Yeah.
levels of government for that matter, I feel it's been efforts of past 21 years being
Right.
uh, like being able to get involved with the governments at different levels. Now for example, when we are involving ourselves, or we are collaborating with the RDPR government at Karnataka, which is like the rural development of Panchayati Raj system. So we do work with them as well. So it requires a lot of effort, but I would also say that the government has been welcoming and very supportive of CMCA. Okay, so
Yeah.
they've been supportive of our programs. They've been able to tell us, give feedback on programs for that matter, and help us strengthen those ideas of democratic citizenship and life skills. So, another example for the government would be before COVID, obviously, when we
Yeah.
used to have when we do campaigns, which are like physical campaigns, like offline, right?
Yeah.
So we used to have this campaign called the Traffic Police Day, okay? And the children, like
Yeah.
from class 8th, would eventually go to the traffic police department and, engage with them, talk to them, and have their own kind of learnings happening. So that was, so in that case, the traffic police department, if you take as an example, have been very supportive of us, to be able to give their time and day to be
Yeah.
with children. It's been amazing on that end. And coming to the last point of it, when you talk about public figures, right?
Yeah.
So I think whether you take the example of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam or Rahul Dravid for that matter. So, Rahul Dravid being that public figure where everybody is
Yeah.
extremely like
Because we had
inspired.
his signature on our certificates, and we were very excited that we were associated with the same thing as Rahul Dravid.
Yeah, so I think the
Yeah.
idea of believing in children and the cause, because they've been our goodwill ambassadors for a really, really long
Yeah.
time, and they still are in touch with the organization. So, being able to for children, it's very inspiring. Like, how you said, since you've been a part of
Yeah.
CMCA, that, to be able to support the cause that they believe in, okay,
Yeah.
and to be able to say that, we want children to be a part of a movement where they bring about change. And public
Right.
figures sometimes play a very, very important role because they have that inspiring angle to their aura, I would say, okay,
Yeah.
and their entire personality, that it just adds on and enhances getting more attraction and more students being able to believe in and get excited about it. So yeah, I
Right.
think
Definitely.
it's been extremely exciting to work with different demographies. like demographies of the society, but at the same time, it requires a lot effort. Okay.
Yeah.
Because, it's been 21 years. So yeah, but it's been
Yeah.
exciting and people have been very supportive of CMC in that case.
Right. No, for example, the whole traffic police day, we had something called Pora Karmika Day.
Yeah.
So we always engage with the house, the school help and, even outside. And we had them over and then did activities with them. And it was quite interesting. So further moving on, we just wanted to know how how CMC and society have directly been responding to each other, right? So how accepting has society been? Because I think a lot of concepts that we did as part of CMC, because I think back then there wasn't a lot of awareness about even basic environmental issues. And I think that's changed today's demographic because everybody, learns about, saving water, being more conscious, saving electricity, not leaving the lights on. So how has that changed in terms of, curriculum and, what kind of values do children are instilled in children now?
Okay, so I think over the as you said, as even CMCA started in 2000s, okay, and at that time CMCA was under the parent organization, okay, wasn't an independent trust, and that time the idea was to focus on like environmental issues, as you said, that was the thing, because everybody was trying to learn at that point of time. But as we've moved over time and over years, I think I would like to mention that CMC in 2014 did a study, okay, which was called the Yuva Nagrik Meter, okay, and we published the report in 2015. It was basically a study done to establish, where does the young India stand on democratic citizenship?
Yeah.
Okay, and it was also first in India to be done on citizenship education, in order to be able to have like a credible, reliable source of data for, even stakeholders like the government, the civil society organizations, or even the educators, to be able to see that, these what are the statistics. Okay. And I would like to quote one or two of them, which is very exciting to know this is what it is. So, for example, 51% of the high school students actually thought that, the women's role in the society is to actually take care of children and do household work. Okay.
Yeah.
And only 35% of high school students thought they were citizens. Like, they thought they were citizens of the country. And 51% of college students had this intolerance kind of a thing towards migration, like the migrant workers coming from other states.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at that study and when you look at the entire comprehensive data on various themes, you start to, try to include them as well in the curriculum. Okay. And you try to build a holistic view of, democratic citizenship and life skills, right? So what we started, I think we always used to, but we had this whole angle of where the life skills were like, intertwined into the citizenship education, where, where the child is learning about diversity is also learning that through critical thinking, is learning that through teamwork. Okay. There's, group work involved. There's community involved. Okay. Because that's the whole idea, that the problem identification in the community and the resolution for the community was very, very important. So as we went down the line, the focus on the young, like the students and the college students, became more important, that we should holistically cover the idea of democratic citizenship, because that was the study was telling us, that, the criteria all over had figures which was below average for most of it. So we thought it's very, very important not just to look at the environmental issues, okay, but also to make sure that the curriculum gives it in whole perspective, what it is to, learn about citizenship, learn about life skills, and actually to have like an education for democracy, which is very, very important. Yeah.
Right. So I think I understand a lot of these big words, but I think it'll be important, or it'll be helpful for us to bring out an example for our audience that they can relate to, and how they've probably missed out that I wish I learned this in school and not the hard way when I grew up.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we could probably I could probably take a theme and talk about it a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, since I'm passionate about gender, so I'm just going to pick that up.
Yes, yes, sure.
So, like, let's say when I said in the starting that we start from age 6 and to above, right? So, how do we address gender at age 6 and talk about,
Yeah.
you know, the equality angle, or let's say talk about life skills, about critical thinking, and all of that. So, we this activity cards that we have for young children in the Magic Box program, right? We do cover it in terms of trying to give them the exposure, like, this the awareness about it. So one such example would be, we talk about the idea of who does work at your home. Okay. So,
Yeah.
tell them a story about household work. Okay, who's doing what?
Yeah.
So let's say,
Okay.
the male figures are taking care of the finances, making decisions in the
Right.
family, whereas my mother is
Yeah.
going and getting water. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how, and at the end, you'll have some reflective questions for children to talk about the story. So in a way, you are trying to address the aspects of gender, because we do work
Yeah.
with certain outcomes, right, that we want to
Yeah.
achieve. Similarly, if you take gender to a higher class, like to
Higher.
a higher
Yeah.
grade, so let's say you take it for class 8, like the club students, right?
Yeah.
We do have activities which are, and because we use different pedagogies, okay, so there is this poster which has most of the Indian ads on men and women, okay, and it's called
Okay.
the ad mag, okay. So
All
we
right.
give these posters to the children, and they sit in groups, and then they discuss about the ideas. We tell them, can you please tell us what are the attitudes and behaviors that you can get out of these ads? Okay. When they
Right.
make a list of it, it's very clearly visible that how much stereotyping has been done on both
Yeah.
sides. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's another way of addressing it. And I think the more we move towards the university type of a level,
Yeah.
and we focus still on the same theme, let's say,
Yeah.
that's when gender starts involving things like gender based violence. Okay. The
Yeah.
issues become a little complex. We start talking about, we have an activity called the gender box. Okay.
Okay.
Where we give some instructions and we tell them that these are the things that we are talking about to be an ideal woman, or let's say in the binary, to be an ideal woman or a man. And you if you achieve yourself a 100 mark target, you will be in the box, you will be right very near to the box. Okay. And
Yeah.
then the children, and we tell them, just take some time and think, where do you think you fit? Okay. Like, how much would you give yourself, like a 10 or a 20? Okay. And we haven't
Yeah.
had any child giving themselves a perfect 100 for it. Okay. And that's how they come and stick those things on the blackboard, and they see that there's no definition of being an ideal woman or a man in the binary that's been set up. So similarly,
Yeah.
like I talked about gender, you can take any theme. I think we do focus on 7 of the main themes, which is rights and
Yeah.
responsibilities. We talk about diversity, gender, harmony with nature. We talk about personal integrity. We talk about positive thinking and resilience. Okay. So we do
Yeah.
have things like self-regulation and emotions and self-confidence, self-esteem. And they're very, very important in today's time, when you see the ideas of feelings, right? To be
Yeah.
able to understand what you're feeling and to be able to manage that. And maybe you're not looking for a solution for your feelings, but to be able to address the fact that you're feeling this, which is completely fine, but and
Yeah.
this is what you're feeling and this is how you want to manage it, is something that the children are being taught as young as age 6 in very different
Yeah.
ways, right?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the way I would give probably an example for it.
Yeah, and I think these life skills or these little environmental issues, when children speak up, when they when they actively take part in society, I think it naturally makes them more confident and makes them feel important, like they're a part of society, they're being heard, and just gives them the opportunity to participate more in society.
Yeah.
And that I can speak for from my entire batch and all of us, and I think that was very important for us. Have you ever felt that these citizens have given back to society? You've seen them grow up and come back and give back to CMCA because you've given to society now.
Yeah. No, I think I would start by taking your own example, right? And I think
Yeah.
it was lovely because when I got to know from Flora, right? Because okay, it's for everybody else who's on the live, Flora works at CMCA and she's the communication domain person. So she was telling me day before yesterday that Vidhi has been a student of CMCA from
Yeah.
school, and then I was just got very happy. Okay, I was just like, this is exactly the way it is that we are trying to have a conversation today because you've been a part of CMCA. And probably I would consider this is one way of, how society is coming back. Okay. And we are talking about and having such conversations. Similarly, when I like another example that I can give you is in the recent 2 years, we've noticed that a lot of students who've been part of CMCA's programs, like in class 8th, the club
Yeah.
program, and all
Yeah.
of it, they're actually interning with us. Okay,
Yeah.
they're interning with us, they're working with us, and that's
Yeah.
really very amazing to see how they're coming back, and they want to learn and they want to contribute in the whole idea of the CMCA community. Similarly,
Hmm.
another element which is very important is I think you might know this, that for everybody else on the screen, that CMCA has a lot of stakeholders, right? We do have
Hmm.
volunteers for that matter, who are basically like the one of the extremely important foundation for on which the CMCA programs are run. So
Yeah.
volunteers being able to devote their time, put in efforts
Hmm.
to go to schools, take sessions in schools,
Yeah.
and to do that and coming back and talking to us, learning with us. So I feel
Hmm.
that's another way of how we see that society is coming back and probably giving it back in their own ways, the way they would like to. And I think the
Hmm.
example that I quoted in the starting about the Makla Gram Sabhas, okay,
Yeah.
so when you see children take up issues, okay, and they
Hmm.
actually engage with the government. So, for example, I've had children that I have taken workshops for when I used to, like, in my first year of CMCA, where they used to go and call the local authorities and say, this is not how it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. You're not
Yeah.
doing it right. And those kind of things. So that's very beautiful to see that so much lacks of when lacks of work get done. Okay, and the
Hmm.
children say we've got it done because CMCA guided us how to go about it and how to
Yeah.
talk about it, and even we can complain because we don't like the way
Yeah.
it is, right? So I think, yeah, those are little examples. I would say that society is probably giving back in the way they think is feasible for them.
Yeah, definitely. No, every time, we had an entire list of contact numbers, and if one contact number didn't work, then we could go back and get another contact number. So we were always a part of society and could give back to society. So it makes a lot of sense. I'd like to ask you if you recall any, one particular incident that, led you to believe that changes that CMC has brought about in your life, or, any moment that you had while being a part of CMC, and it thrilled you and gave you that spark, that instant thought that, oh my god, thank god I'm a part of CMC, really inspired you.
Yeah, I think, I'm think like the thing is that this entire idea of incidents, okay, like I have so many in my head, like it just
Yeah.
comes up when you were talking about it. But if I really have to like pick one, I would say I
Hmm.
think it was, I'm not very sure of the year, but I think it's either
Hmm.
2019 or 2020. And we had this
Hmm.
story of a girl from Hosur, okay,
Okay.
who actually, in a very subtle way, came to her
Hmm.
school, because it was the COVID times, right? So
Hmm.
only there were certain times when the students were coming to school, if you may say so, but not like
Yeah.
regularly classes. She came to school and, in a very subtle way, she told her teacher that her parents are getting her married and she doesn't
Hmm.
want to get married at such a young age. And then
Yeah.
obviously the educator got in touch with CMCA, and then the CMCA called the child line. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
and the child line we called the 1098 child line. And then obviously there was this whole process to be able to manage this, like the whole problem. So if
Hmm.
I think for me that's extremely very inspiring because uh, as young as that girl, okay, to be able to
Hmm.
decide for herself that I don't want this and I don't think so this is the right thing and I
Yeah.
don't want to do it. Maybe, for a lot of people it might be like, okay, she took a decision, it got solved, it's so nice and everything, which is great.
Yeah.
but you also need to look at that she's probably was looking forward to her life that's still there for years to come, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was
She had
even
her
in
goal
that,
planned
yeah,
out.
even in that moment of like probably whatever days it had to be solved in, it was still that
Hmm.
goal that I don't want my life like this and I don't want to get married right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And if a girl probably from Hosur can say that at such a young age that I don't want to do this and go and talk about it, try to have that safe environment to tell the CMCA volunteer, the educator, that, this, I don't
Hmm.
want to do this. Can you please help me? So I think
Hmm.
that's a very inspiring incident for me, because it takes sometimes a lot of courage to even say that you don't like it. Okay. And
Yeah.
even if children are coming up and telling that they don't like it and are able to share what they feel like, so I think that was extremely very, very inspiring.
Yeah. No, I'd just like to ask you one last question. I think it makes a lot of sense for me to ask that which part of society, is the easiest to work with, and why would you say so?
Easiest as in are you talking about like whether it's children or whether it's something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, with children, like, whether the demographic, like 6 to 8 years is easiest to work with when they're very young. Or, when they're high schoolers, it's easier for you to, communicate with them. And there's better results and they understand the concepts faster.
Okay.
That sort of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I'm not gonna pick up a category probably. Okay.
Yeah.
But I definitely, you can ask a follow-up question for that.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I'll tell you something before we actually venture into that question. The whole paradigm about learning, right, like the education,
Yeah.
actually needs to change a bit. And instead of we saying that how can we teach children, probably should be, let's focus how children learn. Okay. And when you start focusing on that, I don't think so any age would become difficult to venture. Okay.
Right.
Because right now, how we go and approach children, or let's say even the youth for that matter, to discuss something, it's always like, this is what it is, right? Okay. And you're supposed to, work with this. This is the right way of working around. So we go and teach them. Okay. That this is what it is, how children are responding and everything, or how, for that matter, youth is responding to issues. But if we just take one step back and, probably see how people learn, okay, and try in venturing that, then I don't think so any age would become difficult or any age would become easy, because it'll be like
Yeah.
a constant engagement with that particular demography of the society, whether it's as young as 6 years of age or it's as probably an adult who's in college. Then it won't be that difficult, provided we are allowing a space for the education, like for democracy as education, to be able to be invented at that point where it's in practice. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
see, for example, what happens is that this whole idea also comes about because when you see the education, like the school education for that matter, in the current times, okay, it's
Yeah.
always been, we've been taught, I think you were saying in the starting, no, we've been taught in our civic test, also, in fact, me also, that,
Yeah.
this is how the government looks like, this is what the constitution says, this is what it is.
Yeah.
What happens is within that institution, such as school or like, let's say, a college, even though we are being taught, we're not practicing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Children are very fearful to ask questions in schools. Okay. They're scared. They don't think that they get a fair chance to ask questions. Similarly, if you look at probably, let's say, in college, children are a bit probably embarrassed about what they're trying to say, something like that. So when you see that even though we are teaching them with books, there is this gap that we notice, right? Because we are not putting the democracy for education into practice. So it gets a little
Yeah.
difficult. And in that perspective, if you think, then you can probably be like, this age is difficult to crack because, we are going to talk about this at this age. So it's going to be difficult. So I feel it's more or less the paradigm needs to change about how children learn and how we should not go and teach them. Because
Yeah.
I think in my experience of 3 years, probably at CMCA now, approximately 3 years, I have seen, I've learned more than I've learned from anyone else from children actually. Okay, because the
Yeah.
kind of things that they keep on telling and saying, it's very, very important. So yeah, I think I would like to put it that way. But at the same time, I could probably end it by saying that it becomes easier if you start early. Okay.
Yeah.
The process, which does not mean that your process starting early of, citizenship education and life skills should stop at a certain age. Like stop it at eighth, seventh class because it's fine. Abhi, we've got whatever we wanted to get and everything like that.
Yeah.
You start as early then because you are constructing it right over the period
Yeah.
of years. You start
Yeah.
early, which is a good thing, but you can venture at any point. But it always gives you an advantage if you start as young as 6 and go up till probably the college or the university level. And I think that's also the idea that CMCA offers that entire range of programs. That we want to start from 6 and we want to carry this whole mission to probably till university.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Even in school, as children, as you were saying, that you will learn from your, from the children that you were teaching. We learn from our classmates because there would be someone who came up with, a story or an incident that they dealt with. And we want to do something just like that because, as young children, you're very competitive that, they've done something, they've made change, but we haven't. So you're more, you have a lot more rigor to make change. Yeah. I think that's about it. That was a very insightful session and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Brought back a lot of memories and me being part of CMCA. Is there any closing thought that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think I think I would just summarize probably and take up 2 points from there and leave it at that. One, I would say that, to expand our understanding of education and to be aware, to probably give some space to the idea that citizenship education and life skills is very, very important. And it's a part of education because let's not take our democracy for granted. So I would leave that one point over there. And the second point that I would leave is, not the thing that I was saying in the last answer that please don't teach children, like just respond and see how children are learning. Okay. Because if as adults, you're going to come with this idea of, okay, I'm going to teach you this. Okay. Probably going to get a little difficult because you'll have categories in your mind. You want the child to do this, to do this, to do this. But the moment you come with the idea that, okay, a child is learning because the child learns even by experience, exposure, the curiosity. So, to have that kind of a perspective to go about education as such will be very, very important. So I'll probably stop at those 2 points. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much, Ms. Rashmi, for joining us today. And I hope the audience has enjoyed this session. If there's any questions that anyone has, you can leave it in the question answer box or in the comments and we can take it up. We'll be posting this live as well, so you can always leave it in the comment section even later on. Okay, I think either we addressed all the questions or people are a little lost about it.
Yeah, even I'm just checking. Probably the Saturday also.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for joining us in, and I hope you enjoyed the session as we did. For our audience, we'll be having another session this coming weekend from Society to Society. Thank you for joining us in our live series. Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vidhi. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye.